pull your car over if you're driving and put your hands together for Abby Greensfelder, everybody.
Hi, guys. That was the best intro of all time.
There you go. I mean,
I think I'm officially now sports adjacent or soccer adjacent. I'm a soccer adjacent executive.
All right.
I'm going to put that on my bio.
I'll be honest, that's better than a lot of the executives at USSF. So it's pretty good. It's a better. All right. So we're going in with shots fired immediately.
Yeah, well, you know, it's Cooligans, so that's going to happen.
No,
it's Cooligans.
And let's you know, this is obviously a very serious subject, the
Yes.
equal pay fight. This documentary is absolutely incredible. We got the privilege of getting to see it, see a screener, and it's, you know, we've the last few years we've interviewed several of the players. We've had these conversations. It has felt very, you know, we're comedians. We're trying to add some levity to this conversation, but it is pretty serious. And this depiction of this fight is what some of the most emotional, some of the most endearing, and to get to the facts and to get to the actual fight and the details, which is we don't really get to see for the most part. We just see Trump tweets and we see the nonsense that happens on social media. So as far as creating this and being a part of this, what was the experience like, and what was the exact, I guess, goal for you to be a part of something like this that's so incredible?
Yeah. First, thanks for having me on, guys, and for bringing the levity to what you do. But as you say, this is an important subject. The timing of this project was kind of unique in that I had just set up this new company, Everywoman Studios, that's about telling stories by and about women. And I used to play sports as a kid. I have two daughters. I tracked this story, and when it was announced that the women had filed this gender discrimination lawsuit, I thought to myself, this is a story that must be told. So I approached some of the folks associated with the team to ask, who's telling this story, assuming that someone was, but nobody was, partly because it's very difficult to tell, because the story is about these women suing their employer, who is the employer they want to work for. But those dynamics, of course, are challenging. And that's part of, I think, why no one was telling the story. But that got me motivated to tell this story, which was not easy to do because so much about it is complex. It's hard to cover a lawsuit in an active lawsuit because there's a lot of attorney-client privilege. And as you guys know, because you cover soccer, there are many players on this team, and we really wanted to get a sense of the collective. Of course, we couldn't cover everybody and everything, and not all players might not want to be in a documentary, but I think what I'm really proud of, the goal was to tell a story that was authentic to these women and the fight that they have joined collectively to do, and also to tell a story that mirrors this broader point in our culture, which is that the issue of equal pay exists. Women are still not paid equally to men. And I think it's something that every person can relate to. And this story for me very much felt like one of the big stories for women in our culture at this moment. And so I wanted to find a way to tell it that was personal and also emotional and moving and factually, you know, explain the stakes. And so I went about the process of putting together a team that would tell the story right, and partnered with some amazing filmmakers, Andrea Nix-Fine and Sean Fine, who are great at telling these kind of personal stories. And so I personally think we achieved the goal of telling this broader story that's more broadly resonant, but also feels intensely personal.
I saw an interview somewhere where you had talked a little bit about how you started and you mentored under a woman who ran a production company in the UK. And you had said that that was rare at that time. And you run a woman-owned and founded full-service media company. Talk a little bit about the parallels between sort of what you had to go through to get to where you are and what some of these women are going through. But also, it seems like there's a parallel with the Jess McDonald story as well, of sort of this woman who is trying her hardest to provide for her child and sort of, getting to these peak moments of success, but finding it difficult to still earn that income that gives her a little bit of a sort of a settled, relaxed, maybe a bit more life.
Yeah, I definitely relate personally to the story, I think, as many women will. And people generally, anybody who feels like they haven't been paid equally for the same work as somebody else, right? But coming up through the media industry as a woman, and I did have a lot of opportunity, but I also saw that there weren't a lot of women running production companies. I came up through the unscripted business, which is, making documentaries and nonfiction shows. And so at this point in my career, I really feel like, having had this sort of good run, that I wanted to start a company that not just told these kinds of stories, because I feel like a place of privilege where I can help make stories happen, but also to support other women in the business so that they can have their own production companies or create diverse and different kinds of stories. Because the stories often start at that production company level. We're the ones that come up with the ideas. So if we don't have diverse folks helming those companies, the stories won't be as diverse. So that's the idea of Everywoman Studios, is creating sort of a place where these kind of diverse and female-focused stories can be told. And in terms of the Jess story, I think you totally nailed it, that her struggles are so relatable that in order to do the job that she loves, that she is so good at, she has had to make a series of really tough personal decisions, had to be a single mom and care for her child. And when I was early in my career, I actually left my corporate job because it was impossible for me to have a flexible work schedule, managing a big team in a corporate environment. And that's actually part of why I started my own business. Because I thought, well, if I can be my own boss, I'm going to create the kind of culture where any individual can be a whole person. So they can be a parent and leave when they need to leave. They can have an outside life. And that was important to me. So I think, as women or as individuals, we want to be able to be parents, have lives, and do the work that we love. And I think this movie shows that equality is more than a paycheck. It's about being valued. And part of that is valuing the whole person.
Well, I mean, I think that's creating that kind of a work environment is a bold thing. Our parents who would say, like, that's ridiculous. Why would you need to work? You need to suffer and struggle because that's the way things are.
My mother's like, what do you mean you're relaxing on the weekends? Go to a factory and hand in an application. Different person, different era.
What's going on, everybody? It's Megan Rapinoe here. I just kicked it with the soccer gods, the Cooligans. Check it out.
I also wanted to ask about the celebrity of these players. I don't know what your connection was to American soccer before this
I thought you were going to ask, like, how cool is Megan Rapinoe?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, Megan Rapinoe is very cool.
Yeah,
Unsettlingly cool.
We can confirm.
When you meet her, she has that cool factor.
Yeah,
right.
She just has it.
She's such a badass.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about, just because we did Megan Rapinoe has been on this show. We've done a live event with her in Charlotte, and I would argue I've never been around a more famous person. Meaning it was like if the Spice Girls were coming out, you know what I mean? Like the crowd was losing their absolute mind.
Yeah.
But working with and she's also one of the most humble people you will ever meet. But just the star level, what I really loved about the documentary was just really seeing in detail the camaraderie amongst the players. Megan Rapinoe doesn't put herself above a Sam Mewis. She knows, I think, her responsibility and her celebrity, but there really is something to be said about the connection all the players had, and being just aware of the moment and using that celebrity for a positive change.
Yeah. I think that these women understand the power of the collective. And I actually think it's a great model for women and people everywhere. If you can band together their skill as a team, just like on the field, they all know their roles. They know what they're powerful at. They know how to leverage their teammates. In this fight for equal pay, and hopefully it comes across in the movie, and I think that it does, they each play different roles. And they actually organize themselves very strategically with different roles. Different people were sort of on the committee to run the lawsuit, for example. And other people have different roles. Someone like Sam Mewis, who you mentioned, who's a real rising star on this team, is an incredible player, but also a real leader and really sort of stepped up to have a real active role on this leadership legal committee. So what I love about this is it kind of, we see what it looks like to create a collective movement. They all did it together. And I think that's really important. And for anybody who wants to make change, doing it with others in lockstep has always been the way. When you look at movements over time and how we've pushed progress forward culturally, often it takes a group collective decision and experience to make change.
Was there, I mean, the team is pretty big, and obviously there's players that come in and out. You mentioned a bunch of players, and obviously if for people will get to see the movie, it comes out, it actually premieres in the Tribeca Film Festival, congrats, on June 17th, and everyone will get to watch it on HBO Max on June 24th, and I suggest you do because it's incredible. We got a screener, we're pretty important. We got to see it early, but so in watching it, we got to see a lot of interviews with a lot of players. Was there anyone that you tried to get that didn't work out?
I mean, definitely one of the challenges, of course, as you guys know, because you cover soccer, everybody's so busy.
Yeah.
And they're playing for country. They're playing for their professional teams. They have lives. So for some people, understandably, I mean, on some level, we would have loved to have covered everybody on the team because they're all incredible. But we had to, from just production standpoint, focus on some individuals. And part of our choice there was individuals also who had a very active hand in the lawsuit, because that was the thrust of the story we were following. So, you know, Becky Sauerbrunn, Sam Mewis, Kelley O'Hara, Megan Rapinoe, Christen Press, those guys really formed some of the central group that was involved with this lawsuit. So they, and Jess, who is named to the lawsuit, but we felt it was important to get in the story someone who is kind of a contract player and pulled into both the national team and the lawsuit, and kind of to give that picture of what it's like to be a pro player at this moment in soccer, because she's someone who was not a regular on the national team, but who got called up for the World Cup and who just has an incredible story. So we felt like, how could we tell the collective story through a couple individuals who represented the whole? And those women are so amazing individually and collectively. They all come from different places. They play different positions, both on the field and off the field, but they all speak so eloquently, I think, about their journey and why it matters to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jess's story in particular. You know, it was what we were at the NWSL Championship when the Courage won, and just seeing, you know, and we like, you know, we're pressed and we're like taking photos and videos and seeing how happy she was and with her son. And then, you know, it makes me think about, like, as comics, you know. I mean, there was a year I probably made like $21,000, and I'm like, and then I hear she mentions like that she made $15,000 in 1 year as a professional player, and I'm like, how that that year was really hard for me, and I can only imagine having $6,000 less than that, and being a professional
single
athlete.
Mom, and being a single mom, and she was MVP, as you guys know, of the NWSL.
Yeah.
She was named one of the best players of the pro league. It's right. So these aren't just any women we're talking about. These are the best women at this game in the US, and objectively the best at this game in the world, because they have the most, you know, winningest streak of any team at any time. So exactly to your point, if these women who are the world beating athletes that they are, if they can't get equal pay, and if Jess McDonald is making $15,000, how do we as a culture support women's professional sports? We're not valuing it the way that we should. And I think progress is being made in the NWSL with new ownerships and people investing in the league and sponsors coming on board. But that's really important to show up and value the game. You know, buy a ticket, go to an NWSL game, talk about it as you guys do. Go there, because when you see it, it's amazing. And more people need to go buy tickets, invest. And when the consumer watches, watches the game, watches this movie on HBO Max, it shows the value of what these women represent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it adds to what you mentioned before, that relatability, which is what we hope this show is as well. We don't get into. You guys
are very relatable.
That's the plan, right?
You heard it here first, folks.
People are like, "Oh, he made $20,000 one year." I get it. I get his life.
It's funny you say that, but there's comedians all over the world who were like, "Wow, he must have had a good year."
Hey, this is Brian Escuri, and I had a fantastic time kicking it with the Cooligans.
I want to get your take, at least, on kind of what's going on now. I mean, what I did love is the storyline of kind of what happened. Carlos Cordero, the open letter, kind of him leaving, all these things. At the moment right now, the last update I'm aware of, U.S. Soccer, the new president Cindy Parlow-Cone had mentioned that they made an offer, that they basically said that they will pay for any match that U.S. Soccer controls. They will be equal pay between the men and the women, but anything that basically is World Cup that FIFA handles, that they can't match those, that level of pay, and that they won't be able to match the back pay for that. And from what we understood, that was rejected. But what is your perspective on it? Because I would say to the layman, that seems like a reasonable offer. But why not necessarily why reject that? Because I don't want you to speak for the women's national team. But why is at least does that seem like a good faith offer from your perspective?
Yeah. Well, in terms of sort of the latest, and we cover this a little bit in the coda of the film.
Yeah.
The women and U.S. Soccer settled on these working conditions, right? So fields, travel, hotels, all that kind of stuff. That was part of the case that was brought. So that was settled, which was really positive. But what's still, as you said, kind of out there is the question of pay and how the pay structure is set up. And really at this point, none of those things that you mentioned, those have not been public. And we as storytellers and filmmakers weren't privy to those conversations. So, I mean, some of that has been in the media, et cetera. I think that really, I know that from following this story and hearing from the women, for sure that the hope and the issue is anything short of equal pay to them does not feel acceptable. At this moment, they've not come to any kind of settlement. So absent doing that, the women have filed for an appeal for the summary judgment that was made, and have, as we said in the coda of the film, have hired a woman named Nicole Saharsky to run their appeal, who's kind of a badass in her own right, argued more cases in front of the Supreme Court. So I don't know where it will end up. It was one of the challenges, to be honest, in telling this story from the beginning, because when we started, we didn't know where this case would go. And I think following it as kind of an insider, and I'm someone, I love soccer, I follow the game and stuff. So you think, well, surely these parties will come to agreement along the way, because nobody, as you see in this, it's hard to do this. I think Christen Press at one point says, like, it distracts you from your game, right? Nobody wants to be suing your employer, especially the one that you've worked all of your life to work for. Like, this is where you want to be working, right? And on the flip side, surely U.S. Soccer doesn't want to be in conflict with their prime asset, this winningest team in the world, right? But I don't know where it will net out. I genuinely hope for both parties that they get to a place that both feel good about, because it does feel like, the women deserve equal pay. And certainly, as from a U.S. Soccer perspective, I think investing in this game, the women have proven that there's a market here. So being able to sort of invest in the game, invest in the women, that's going to all create positive momentum moving forward.
And just to kind of affirm that point, we always say this, the episodes that we do with the women's soccer players are always higher rated than the men's soccer players. They just literally always happens. The support, the fan base, the energy is just, I mean, the numbers just show it. So
they just have huge fan base.
Yeah.
And partly because of their success, and also, they've got the swagger. I mean, part of what it creatively with Sean and Andrea, the directors of the film, and my production partners, one of the things creatively we're thinking about is, what should the title of this movie be? And the last documentary that was made about the national team was called Dare to Dream. And when thinking about the title of this film and wanting the story to be in their words and really told by them, LFG just rose to the top. Because this group of women, to the point about why people love them, they're not daring to dream. They're not asking. They're demanding equality. And there's some swagger there. And there's a badassedness there that only an expletive, kind of speaks to. That's their rallying cry. So I think there's something about this group that tonally is a departure from where even movements for women have been in the past. It's kind of we're worth it.
Yeah. I would love to see the whiteboard where there were like the other name suggestions, like you pay me. They're like, well, that's a little rough.
Give me my goddamn money.
Did it.
Yeah.
We were going to try not to swear, but you just did it.
Yeah, I mean, they'll bleep it out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I want everyone to remember. I want everyone to remember that this premieres Thursday, June 17th at the Tribeca Film Festival. Absolute congratulations on that. I know how hard that is, and everyone can watch it on HBO Max on June 24th. So I suggest you do. It's absolutely incredible, especially if you watch the show. You know all the cast of characters in this film, so you might as well do it. It's absolutely impressive.
Hi, I'm Michelle Akers, and guess what I did today? I hung out with the Cooligans.
Abby, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you want to let people know about before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I think people should vote with their eyes, watch the movie. We'll be Everywoman Studios. Our production company is at Everywoman Studios on all social media. We'll be posting some stuff there. My partners change content and propagate. We're just thrilled to do this. And I have to give a shout out to HBO Max and CNN Films, our partners, because they stepped up and believed in the importance of telling this story. And as you guys know, as people that are out, doing what you're doing, you got to have people believe in what you're trying to do and get it out to people. And they're doing that in a big way. And that means a lot to us and to the women, who really took a leap to let us make this film.
Okay.
For sure.
And I just want to add, Alexis mentioned up top that you had one of the creators of Say Yes to the Dress. So I can,
yes, I did.
I can talk to you and really just blame you for the anxiety that my current fiance has right now about picking
so
a
sorry.
wedding dress.
She hopes someone asked the question about the dress so she could say yes to it.
Yes. I would say, is it A-line, mermaid cut, or what's the...
Okay, I'm going to go get her.
Have you watched enough episodes to know the difference?
Yeah, you got to. That's your new documentary you got to follow now, Christen.
Yes. From say yes to the dress to say yes to equality. That is how we'll end this.
Boom.
All right, we have a couple other pieces of business before we wrap up. We have to get to our Golazo GIF. This is your opportunity. We will give you a scenario. You can celebrate a goal that we will turn into a GIF on this show. So, Alexis, do you have a scenario that you would like to give Abby?
Absolutely. You happen to be sitting in the court when you hear the gavel hit and the reading that says, the women are found, whatever the judge decides on the women's side, and equal pay will happen across all of soccer. And that is the beginning of all that. You, knowing there's a bunch of soccer players here, you decide to celebrate the same way they would if they scored a goal. How would you celebrate in that court?
I'll say victory.
Perfect. Okay, just blow a kiss to all the haters. That's awesome. Abby Greensfelder, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody follows and support. Again, watch LFG, support Everywoman Studios, and you can follow us at Soccer Cooligans on all social channels. Follow at Fubo Sports as well, and subscribe to the Fubo Sports YouTube channel for more clips and full episodes of the show. Okay, Abby, let us end the show the way we normally do, as is tradition. So could you please join us in this? So for Abby Greensfelder, my name is Christian Polanco.
I'm Alexis Guerreros.
And together, what are we?
The Cooligans!